Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to deep dive into some Silicon Valley drama. We're talking about Intel.
Intel, huh?
Yeah, Intel. Remember them? They used to be like the king of computer chips, like the E-chip company, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure. What's going on with them? Something big.
Huge. They just ousted their CEO. Their stock is like plummeting. And the boardroom gossip.
Oh,
Ooh,
this is going to be good.
it is. We're going to figure out how they got here and, well, where they might be going. This is some serious stuff. This isn't just like another CEO leaving, right?
No, not at all. I
Yeah.
mean, Pat Gelsinger, the CEO they just got rid of, he was supposed to turn the whole company around. So them getting rid of him, it's like a really bad sign.
Yeah, like they're panicking a little, right?
Seems like it.
All right. So for people who haven't been, glued to the Intel news, can you give us the rundown of what's been going on?
Okay, so it all kind of blew up at a board meeting. Gelsinger was out, done. And now they've got two co-CEOs, just temporarily.
Yeah.
David Zinsner, he's the CFO,
Okay.
and then MJ Holthouse, she's the product CEO.
Two CEOs.
Yeah, for now. But the really interesting part is Frank Yeary. He's been on the board forever, and he was like the main guy who pushed to get rid of Gelsinger. And now he's in charge, kind of the interim chair.
So boardroom coup, company in crisis, and a lot of questions about what's next. So before we get into all that, maybe we should rewind a bit. Why did they even hire Gelsinger in the first place? Didn't he have some big plan for Intel?
Oh, yeah, he did. Big
Well,
plans. He came in back in 2021 talking about like bringing Intel back to the top, taking on Samsung and TSMC.
TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing
Yeah,
Company.
exactly. So Gelsinger, he had this idea, this huge plan for like global expansion, building tons of new chip factories.
So you're called fabs, right? The
Yeah,
factory.
yeah, fabs, short for fabrication facilities. Anyway, Gelsinger wanted to make the U.S. like the leader in chip making again, and he actually got like billions of dollars from the government to do it through that Cheech IPS Act. Oh, and he got a massive contract with the Department of Defense too to make like super secure chips.
Yeah. So he was going all in, huh? Betting big on Intel. But if his plan was so great, why'd they kick him out? What went wrong?
Well, all that stuff he wanted to do, it was like really expensive. Those factories, they cost a fortune to build, and investors started getting nervous, worried that Intel was spending way too much.
Makes sense. But was it just the money? Or was there something else going on?
There's this other company, NVIDIA. They make these like specialized chips. And while Gelsinger was busy building factories and all that, the whole chip industry was changing. Artificial intelligence, AI, that's the big thing now. And those AI systems, they need special chips.
And that's where NVIDIA comes in.
Exactly. NVIDIA was making the chips that everyone needed for AI, and Intel was. Well, they weren't.
Ouch. So they missed the boat on AI, basically.
Kinda, yeah. And it gets worse. There are reports that they missed out on other big opportunities too. Like they didn't get the deal to make chips for Apple. They even considered buying NVIDIA, but they didn't do it.
Seriously, they could have bought NVIDIA. That would have been like game over.
Right. But they passed.
Why would they do that? Were they just not paying attention?
It's complicated. The people running Intel back then, the old leadership and the board, they made some decisions that just didn't work out. They thought those high-performance chips for computers, those would always be the big thing. They didn't really see how important mobile devices would be and how you need special chips for them, chips that are like really energy efficient.
So they were stuck in the past,
Yeah.
too focused on their old successes.
Yeah, kinda. And they weren't as quick as they needed to be, to adapt. And that gave companies like NVIDIA a chance to take over.
It's like a classic story, right? Big company gets complacent and then bam, they're in trouble.
Exactly. And then, on top of all that, Intel's stock just started tanking. Their market value, it's like less than half of what it was a couple years ago.
Wow, things went south fast. Was there like a specific moment where it all started falling apart?
Yeah, August. They released their quarterly results, and they were terrible. Investors just dumped the stock. Biggest sell-off in 50 years.
50 years. That's insane. That's got to be a wake-up call, right?
It was. Intel announced layoffs. They came up with this plan to cut costs by like $10 billion. There were even rumors that they were trying to find advisors to help them fight off activist investors.
So expensive plans that aren't working, NVIDIA eating their lunch, and investors losing faith. No wonder the board decided to act. But what were they even hoping to achieve by getting rid of Gelsinger?
I think they wanted to like make a statement, show everyone that they were serious about making changes, but what those changes are going to be, nobody knows. Maybe they'll scale back on those factories. Maybe they'll try to focus more on AI like NVIDIA. It's all up in the air right now.
Okay, so we've got Gelsinger's big plans, the rise of NVIDIA, and then all this boardroom drama. So now the big question is, what's next? Can Intel actually turn this whole thing around? Can they be a big player again?
That's what we're going to talk about next. We'll look at the search for a new CEO, the changes they might make, and whether Intel can adapt to, like AI and all the new tech that's coming out.
It's going to be interesting, that's for sure. So Intel's got like a mountain to climb to get back on top. The new CEO, whoever they end up being, they've got a tough job. What do you think are the biggest challenges for them?
Well, there's going to be a lot of pressure. I mean, they're walking into like a total mess. Investors are going to be all over them about the money, especially with those factories Gelsinger wanted to build. And then there's the whole AI thing catching up to NVIDIA. Oh, and the board, they're definitely calling the shots now.
Yeah, the board's a whole other issue. But before we get into that, you were talking earlier about how the whole chip industry is changing. What's happening exactly? What do companies like Intel need to do to survive?
Well, the big thing is AI, artificial intelligence, and all the stuff that goes along with it, like machine learning and high-performance computing. Think
Uh,
about all the data centers they need for the cloud, all those self-driving cars they're working on, even medical research. All that stuff needs these really powerful, specialized chips that can handle tons of data and do like super complicated calculations.
So it's not just about making faster processors anymore.
Nope, not enough. They used to just focus on making better and better general-purpose processors, the kind that go in regular computers. But that's not going to cut it anymore. Now they need chips that are designed for very specific tasks. And that means changing, like how they think about designing and making chips.
How does that affect Intel? Are they good at making these new kinds of chips?
Well, Intel's really good at designing and making chips, that's for sure. But they've mostly focused on those general-purpose chips. They're kind of behind when it comes to these specialized ones.
Like with NVIDIA and their chips for AI, can you explain that a little more? Like, why are NVIDIA's chips so good for AI?
Okay, so NVIDIA makes these things called GPUs, graphics processing units. They were originally for like video games and stuff to make the graphics look really good. But turns out GPUs are really good at AI too. They have this like special architecture that lets them do tons of calculations at the same time. And that's exactly what AI needs.
So NVIDIA just got lucky. They had this thing that was meant for one thing, and it turned out to be perfect for something else.
Kinda, yeah. But they were also smart about it. They saw the potential of their GPUs for AI, and they really focused on it. They made software and tools that made it easy for people to use their chips for AI.
So what does Intel need to do? Find their own special thing, right? But they've got some catching up to do.
Definitely. But it's not impossible. Intel's a big company. They've got resources, smart people, and everybody knows who they are. They just need to make some smart moves and fast.
So what should they do? Should they stop building those factories and focus more on AI chips?
Maybe. They need to decide what's most important, where they have the best chance of growing. AI is a big one, obviously. High-performance computing, that's another. Maybe even chips for, like, the Internet of Things. They could also try partnering with other companies or even buying companies that already have the technology they need.
Speaking of buying companies, remember back in September, there were those rumors about Qualcomm maybe buying Intel? What do you think about that? Could that still happen?
Hard to say. Qualcomm's really strong in mobile chips. If they combined with Intel, that would be a huge deal.
Yeah, that would be a massive shakeup. But would it even be allowed? Wouldn't the government have something to say about that?
Oh yeah, for sure. A merger that big, they'd have to get approval from all sorts of regulators. But it's not impossible. We've seen some big tech mergers happen in the past few years.
Okay, so we've got Qualcomm, we've got AI chips, we've got Intel trying to figure out what to do. What else could they try? Any other ideas?
Well, they could go all in on this thing called the foundry business. Basically, that means they would make chips that other companies design.
Wait, so Intel would make chips for their competitors?
Yeah, basically. Gelsinger, he actually started moving Intel in that direction before he left. It's a big market, and Intel already had all these factories.
That's a bold move, especially since they've already spent so much money on those factories for their own chips.
It is. But it could be a good way for them to, like, spread out their business. They wouldn't have to rely so much on selling their own designs.
But wouldn't that be a huge change for them? I mean, they'd have to convince their competitors to trust them.
Exactly. And they'd have to prove they can make really good chips at a good price.
Okay, so lots of options. Acquisitions, specialized chips, the foundry business, the new CEOs can have their work cut out for them. But even beyond those specific things, what kind of person does Intel need to lead them right now?
They need someone who can see the big picture, someone who can get people excited about the future of Intel. They need someone who's not afraid to make tough decisions and stick with them. But they also need to be flexible because things change so fast in the chip world.
Yeah, finding someone who can do all that, that's not easy. But the stakes are high for Intel. They really need to get this right.
Absolutely. The next few years are crucial. They either figure it out and become a leader again, or they just fade away.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges, the changes in the industry, and the different paths Intel could take. But there's one more thing we need to talk about: the board.
Ah, the board. That's a whole other story.
Yeah, they've been kind of in the shadows this whole time, but they're clearly calling the shots now.
Right. Getting rid of Gelsinger, wanting to change direction. It all makes you wonder what their role is going to be in the future of Intel.
Let's get into that next. We need to look at who these board members are, what they know, the decisions they've made in the past, and what it all means for Intel. Okay, so we've talked about all the challenges Intel's facing, how the whole chip industry is changing, and all the different things they could try to get back on track. But there's one group we haven't really looked at yet: the board of directors.
Yeah, the board. They've been kind of quiet, but they're the ones making the big decisions.
Like getting rid of Gelsinger and pushing for a change in strategy. It makes you wonder what they really want for Intel, what their vision is.
Right, and some people are even saying the board is part of the problem, that they've made some bad calls in the past.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Maybe they don't really understand the chip industry well enough, or maybe they're too focused on short-term profits instead of the long game.
There have been rumors about dysfunction on the board,
Mm.
not enough people with real tech expertise, and questions about some of the acquisitions they've made or haven't made.
It's like a whole other drama going on behind the scenes.
Definitely. And Gelsinger leaving so suddenly, it just makes it seem like there's some serious power struggles going on.
So who are these board members anyway? What do they even know about chips?
Well, it's a mix of people. Some are from finance, some from tech, some from academia, even a few from government. Some have been in the chip industry for a long time, but others, not so much.
So they've got a variety of backgrounds, which is good, I guess, to get different perspectives. But do you think they have enough people who really, really understand how chips work, how the industry works?
That's the big question. Some people say no, that they don't have enough technical expertise. They point to some of Intel's mistakes, like that whole Apple thing, as proof that the board just didn't get it.
Yeah, like they were playing checkers while everyone else was playing chess.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder if they were really giving Gelsinger the right advice, the right kind of support. I mean, the chip industry is complicated. It changes so fast.
It almost seems like they were more worried about the stock price than about making the best chips.
It's possible. And there's also been talk about conflicts of interest. Some board members have connections to investment firms
Yeah.
that might have benefited from certain decisions, even if those decisions weren't the best for Intel in the long run.
Wow, so we've got knowledge gaps, potential conflicts of interest, and now this whole fight with the CEO. It sounds like the board has a lot to answer for. But how does this all affect Intel moving forward? They need to find a new CEO, they need a new strategy. What role is the board going to play in all that?
That's the key question. Will they try to control everything? Or will they give the new CEO some space to do their job? It's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out.
So it's like Intel has two problems, right? They need a good CEO, but they also need a good board.
Exactly. They need a board that understands the industry, that can give the CEO good advice, but also let them do their thing.
Yeah, it's a tough balance. And whoever becomes the new CEO, they're going to have a lot on their plate. They need to make investors happy, they need to come up with a plan that actually works, and they need to keep up with all the new technology.
It's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's not clear if they can pull it off.
It's crazy how fast things can change, right? Just a few years ago, Intel was the top dog. Now they're fighting for survival.
It shows you how important it is to adapt, to be smart, to have a plan. And it's not just about the CEO, it's about the whole leadership team, including the board.
Yeah, anyone can make mistakes, even big companies like Intel. But can they learn from those mistakes? Can they change? Can they be a leader again? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Exactly. It's going to be interesting to watch, that's for sure. What do you think? Do you think Intel can make a comeback?
That's a good question, one that we'll all be thinking about, I'm sure. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of Intel. It's been a wild ride, and who knows what the next chapter holds.